All right, guys, here we are. We are at 12.5. Changing gears a little bit. In this lecture is called the circles in a coordinate plane. So, coordinate plane is just an XY graph. And how do we deal with circles when it comes to an XY graph? All right. Let me just scoot down here. So I'm going to throw the formula at you right out of the gate, and then we'll do some explaining. So if we're taking a look at the formula of a circle or equation of a circle, first of all, just as a reminder, the circle has to have that center, and we call that center or notate that as HK. Okay, so HK is the center of the circle. And so take a look at how we do that. We have x minus h squared, and we have our y, and then our k, so y minus k squared, and then that's the radius squared. So for example, if our radius is, if we have a radius of 6, let's just do a problem why not, right? And our HK, or center, is located at 2 and -3. It's going to look something like this. So we're going to say x minus, and what is our HK? Our H is here, so that's 2. So x minus 2 squared, and y minus, but notice that's a -3, so -3, and that's squared, and then r is 6, but we have to square that. So if we clean that up, it becomes x minus 2 squared, okay, y plus 3 squared, and 36. So again, the question is, what is this circle or equation of a circle whose information is radius is equal to 6 and the center is located at HK, right, 2, -3. So that's it. We're going to expand on that. One thing I do want to point out, though, is hopefully this somewhat looks a little bit familiar to you. Okay, if I zoom in on this. So what is HK really? HK is just another x, y value, right? And let me just scoot over here. So if we take a look, and what is r? R is just another value, and I'm going to call that distance. So hopefully you guys are starting to realize that that information is really just pulled off of the distance formula, all right? So what is our distance formula? Remember, it's x2 minus x1 squared, all right, plus y2 minus y1 squared, and distance squared. Okie dokie. So what is our x2? Well, our x2, that's these guys, right? That's all points all around the circle. And the points that do not change at all are the x1 and y1, right? That's our h and k. And if you really want to go back to where that originates from our Pythagorean theorem, right? A squared plus b squared equals c squared. All right, so that's where that equation comes from. So keep that in your back pocket here. We're going to be reviewing and looking at this equation here over and over and over again. But remember, that's just another version of the distance formula. All right, if we scoot down here, they talk about what I just said, and that is why do we use that formula, and they just basically explain how it originates from the distance formula. These technical definition of that formula is just called the standard form of equation of a circle. Sorry, I got a little cut up there. But really, it's just called the standard equation, okay, of a circle. All right, so let's take a look at a few problems, and that's it. It's a short lesson today. So in this case, it says, what is the standard equation of the circle with the center 5, -2, and radius 7? So I did an example like that earlier, but so let's take a look, right? So first of all, let's write that equation. That should always be our first step. So x minus h squared plus y minus k squared, and that equals our radius squared. And then we're going to take our center, right, HK. There it is. So I'm going to say x minus 5 squared y minus -2 squared and 7 squared. And like I did in our earlier example, we're just going to clean this guy up to look like this. Right? Notice how that becomes a y plus 2. And for this 7 squared, we always want to make sure we just multiply that, or I should say square that out, so that becomes 49. All right? So that would be your answer right there. Okay. Another question says, what is the standard equation of a circle with the center this and that passes through the point there? So notice this one's a little bit different. It tells us what our center is, right? With the center, there it is, center. So we know that that's our HK, and it passes through the point 2, 2. So notice way over here, it says, okay, great, it passes right through that place. And so the question is, well, what is the distance between here and there? Because we need our radius. Okay, so what we basically need to do is find out what the radius is. So let's take a look, right? So using the distance formula, and I'll just kind of use these guidelines at the same time. So using the distance formula, remember r is the same thing as distance between these 2 points. So I'm just going to write that as r equals the square root, right? Or d, remember that could have been d also. So d equals r, which equals the square root of, and we'll say x2 minus x1, and y2 minus y1. All right, now let's substitute in our values. So I'm just going to leave the d out now. We'll just say r equals, let's plug those values in, 1 minus 2 squared, and -3 minus 2 squared. So again, those values are found from the radius, right? So there's 2, 2, so minus 2, 2, and then also here, these points as well. Does it matter what we use as HK and X2 and X1? And actually, it doesn't at this point. We're just trying to find the radius. All right, so if we continue to simplify, what we're going to find is this guy. I'll just go step by step here. I'm going to follow the instructions at the same time. Okay, we'll simplify each of those numbers, and what you'll find is we have the square root of 26. All right. So let's just leave that at that. You might be asking, do we need to actually throw this into the calculator? And you do not need to do that. Right now we have a radius, and I'll show you why you do not need to do that. Okay, so the next step is, now that we have a radius, right? So let's just highlight that in pink. All right, there's our radius. Oop, now I'll do that number. Right, radius there. And remember, our center is right here, so we're going to use that number now. And so if we continue on, let's write our equation. So x minus h squared, y minus k squared, and r squared. And we're just going to substitute in our values now. So we have x minus 1 and y minus, remember that's y minus -3. And remember what we have. I'm going to run out of room here. I'm going to just squeeze it in if that's okay here. It's going to be rad 26 and the square root. So remember I said earlier that we did not need to take this guy and throw that into the calculator, because what ends up happening right here is that it simply just cancels out once we square it. So final answer looks like this: x minus 1 squared, y plus 3 squared, and 26. Okie dokie. So remember what the question is, right, what is the standard equation of the circle? And so that is our answer. This guy, bam, right there. All right. Last thing, right? So we had to write 2 equations. And for this last equation, we're being asked to graph a circle. All right, so let me just do that for you. And it's actually not that bad as it may sound. So this is just a lot of gibberish. So let's focus on the equation here, right? Let's graph this guy. Okay, so there's our equation, and I'm going to skip all the way down to here. So x minus 7 squared, right? Again, we're given, this is our given, we're asked to graph that on the coordinate plane, x plus 2 and 64. So remember how this is broken down, right? This is x minus h squared and y minus k squared equals radius squared. So what we need to do now is extract those values. So h is going to equal 7. Notice that this is a plus sign here, so k is going to equal negative 2. And again, notice that this is 64, so we have to get the square root. So r is going to equal the square root of 64, which is equal to 8. And so let's just kind of go one more step and I'll show you how this works. Okay, so we have our hk. Let me just write that out for you. 7, negative 2. And then we have r equals 8. So we need these values here, and we're going to work off those values. All right, so now let's go to our graph. The first thing we need to do is mark off 7 and negative 2, right? And so they have that here for us. These are in increments of 2, by the way, right? 2, 4, 6, 7. And then we have 8. So check out what we have to do. Again, remember these are in increments of 2, so we're going to count 2, 4, 6, 8. But we're going to do that in each direction. So increments of 2, 2, 4, 6, 8, 2, 4, 6, 8, and 2, 4, 6, 8. All right, so that's all we're going to do, and all you need to do is once you've counted out in each direction, just as best you can, throw a circle around the center point and trying to draw through all those points. Okie dokie. Hopefully you can do the reverse of that as well, saying here's my circle, just pick out the center, pick out any point, get the radius, right? Get the center, right, put it in your equation. But check it out. That's all there is to it, to this one. If you have any questions, definitely email me. I'll be happy to take a look at any problems that you would like. All right, Lancers, that's it. Keep up the great work, keep up the hard work, and I'll see you at the next lesson.